Thank you very much that every one of you stayed in this room. This is the closing debate of the Gamescom Congress 2025. My name is Daniel Budiman. I do media stuff since 20 years and I still don't know why. One big part of it is gaming, and I like gaming a lot, with everything that is contained in this whole thing named gaming. And we have 4 specialists here on the stage who all likes gaming somehow, and researched gaming somehow, and make business with gaming somehow, and hosting a whole conference about gaming
I don't know why.
somehow all day, Viola. So please, we want to talk about the whole topics of each and every panel of the Congress. I hope you have been interested in each and every panel. We're gonna make a test with you guys.
Next 7
So this
hours.
this is all about immersive, responsible, and caring. What's the future about all of this? What are the main topics in the game industry? What are the cultural benefits of gaming? What are the purposes, maybe? What are the dangerouses? All those things we're gonna talk about right now, and I'm gonna send some greetings into the internet to the people who watch this stream. So this is gonna be live streamed as well. So Zoran, behave, please. Let me start with you, because you're sitting in the middle, Zoran.
Of course.
Yes. So Zoran, we met each other here in Germany. You are one of the most interesting people in terms of business. You did business with Activision Blizzard. You did work quite some time for Sony PlayStation, for Take-Two, for Rockstar. You've been through this industry, always in the topics of marketing, branding, business-wise, publishing. Level Infinite was a company as well you worked for.
Yes.
I think you have quite the perspectives of the business side of gaming. What's the deal right now, Zoran? Is everything looking good?
It's all peachy. All right, right. Everyone's making
Okay,
money.
everything is fine. We can go.
That would
I
be
mean, you know, the industry is is still reshuffling. We had a bit of a downer, of course. Some people are succeeding, some are not. But this has always been the case. I think we're actually, if you look at it, we're in a very privileged position, because while other industries, especially post-COVID, I mean, COVID was a gold mine for everyone, right? But that meant it took a lot of the revenue that was meant maybe for later years ahead. And now we're kind of recuperating from it. But honestly, we stayed flat where others plummeted.
Yeah.
So in a way, we could say from a monetary perspective, the industry is doing fine. Not great, but fine. Some are doing really great. And this is maybe the biggest issue, but some are really doing very bad, you could say.
yeah.
Badly, I think we're seeing a convergence onto fewer players, where less companies make more money, and on the other hand, that means there's also a lot of more losers. But that also is, losers is the wrong word. No one's a loser, but they're basically not making the cut as they used to, because also the offering is much bigger. Yeah. Look, I think we're gonna hit probably close to 30,000 new releases this year, right? And actually, I think I saw this number. And don't quote me on this. Yeah. This is not on the internet,
It's
right?
like
It's not on the
okay,
internet.
of
Not at all. No.
Amazing. So right around like less than 1% of all games purchased on Steam this year will be released in this year. So 99% of all games purchased this year on Steam will not be released. Will not be released from this year, but have been released earlier. So this is what you're competing against, and obviously the selection has never been bigger. So sticking out is, I think, the problem right now. Basically, discoverability.
Discoverability. Interesting. We will come back to all your topics you fondly put together. Thank you very much, Zoran. And maybe you just spoke about something that is interesting for you. YLan Boureau, nice to meet you. Thank you for your time again. So you had your panel here at the Congress as well. And since 2 years, you're working at your own game as a product, and you're the founder of it, and it's called Thrive Pal. So this is a product. Beforehand, you worked in total 10 years at Facebook. The last
8 years, but yeah.
8 years and 2 years as head of research at the FAIR unit at Facebook.
For East Coast.
I'm sorry, for East Coast, yeah. Head of
my region.
Meta is quite big, I guess.
Yeah, we had 3 regions, so I had East Coast.
So actually, coming from research, coming from artificial intelligence, so you look at data all the time, and now you switched into, producing and developing your own product. What is your take in terms of your perspectives on the gaming industry right now, and maybe the games culture as well?
So for me, there's two very interesting things about games in general. First is that everyone plays them, and when I say everyone, it's like half the world, which is also why I worked at Meta, because I was in experimental psychology so I did AI for my PhD. Then I wanted to work again on the brain, how people work, to help people, because I find for lots of people life is really hard, and it looks like it shouldn't be, but like when you just write down a game like I'm going to not open social media, not watch 4 hours of Netflix, and run 3 times this week. It looks like it's very doable, but it's actually super hard. So trying to understand why it's so hard to accomplish these goals that on paper look like they should be doable. So I worked on self-control for my postdoc, went back to experimental psychology, and then I thought, to help people, actually, you have to meet them where they are. And Meta is a company that has people's eyeballs for like hours every single day for 1 billion people. So that's why I went to Meta. It turns out to be hard to do what I wanted to do there, but that's why I'm really interested in games, because that's the other place where billions of people spend lots of time every day. So if you want to meet people where they are, you kind of have to go into games. So the first aspect of games that I love is that there's lots of people, so it's a very universal language, let's say. The second thing that I really like about games is that it's not just that there's lots of people, because people could be forced to be there, is that they want to be there. You have to pull them away from the room where they're gaming. It's not, you don't have to like say every day, hey, did you eat your broccoli today? They just want to play. So it's something that really speaks to how we want to do things. And given that people who have freedom and agency will do what they want to do, I know it sounds basic, but it's really the thing. It's like, you can't compel people to do something unless you get really coercive. So games have figured out how to get people to do things in a very voluntary way. So for me, that's, if you want to help people change in some way, you have to meet them where they are. And I feel like there's very few industries that are so promising for this as games. Because in practice, empirically, not in some kind of idealistic dream, people are already there. So you can find them there.
Interesting, but you said voluntarily. So I think we all know games that are not so voluntarily anymore, because we're talking about dark patterns in video games. We're talking as well about politics in games as well.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to come to you, Celia Hodent. Nice to meet you. Thank you for your time again. So, what do you think? You have a strong approach in terms of ethics in games. You do have a psychology background as well. You spent years and years working.
Calm down.
You worked months and months. You worked days and days. But Celia, you did it. I just wrote it down, and it's interesting. So you like games, so you started at VTech, and then you went to Ubisoft and did strategic things. And you've always been, in innovative technology spaces, and working for Ubisoft as well, working for Epic Games as well. You were chair from the GDC UX Summit. So apparently, and this is what you wrote on your own website, you like people. Right?
Sounds like, yeah.
Interesting. Tell me about that. I don't know.
Yeah, if you have a couch, I can just lay out. Yeah.
What has ethics? What's the thing about ethics in games right now? Because I hear it a lot and I like it a lot.
Yeah. Like what YLan was saying, like we have approximately 3 billion players in the world today, and it's affecting a lot of people. And what games are really amazing for is to elicit emotions, because it's an art form, and all art forms are going to do that. But they're also interactive. And so the problem is that for some business models, like free-to-play games, we need players to come back. We call that retention. We measure the retention. Are they coming back? And we need to convert. We need conversion, and we need some people to play, so the games can thrive and still exist. Which is great for players, because then you don't have to pay up front. So there's some advantages for that. You can try it out again. Back in my days, like decades ago, you were buying a game based on the cover, and it looks amazing with dragons and stuff, and then you saw pixels. It was not, there were still some problems. And now you can play the game and test it out without paying. But to make that sustainable, it's really difficult. A lot people do not succeed. It's really harsh. So sometimes there are some techniques that are more or less loadable that force a little bit the players to come back, because otherwise if they don't come back, they're going to be punished in some way. They're going to miss out on something. They're going to lose their hard, earned.
I got a mail from my Duolingo bird, and it was
Do
really,
not
really
start.
emotional, embarrassing. It was really he's missing you and stuff like that.
That little burn is a
That was the day.
pain in the, you know what?
Interesting, isn't it?
You never had a Tamagotchi?
Yes, I had it, and it was. I think it didn't had a good time in my actually. Yeah. So again, we're gonna dig deep into all of those topics, and Vio, you had all of those topics in the whole period of time of the Congress, right? So as a stage facilitator, you've seen many people, and you are in the gaming media industry here in Germany since ages, days and days.
It's 20 years actually.
It is 20 years.
20
Hey,
years.
interesting. So what happened from year 1 to year 20 then?
No, I really tried to follow as many talks today on this stage. It wasn't possible to follow all of them, but both of yours I listened to. And I think what stood out in most of the talks that we had today is that we as the games industry, we do not stay in our bubble anymore. We reach out to all kinds of industries, reach out to all kinds of interests that people might have, because we just know that every gamer is not only a gamer. The gamers are also maybe like football fans, or they are interested in, I don't know, arts. And
I don't believe that. I'm just kidding.
No, so we can transfer multiple topics to this huge audience. As you said, like half of the world is playing. And just 3 days ago, when I was back from driving home from Cologne, Messe here, because I had rehearsals, blah blah. I heard on the radio that there's a current new study just released in Germany that especially among gamers, the political interest is pretty high. So there's always a cliche, young people are not interested in politics. The opposite is true. And especially on platforms like Discord, for example, or Twitch comments, people discuss politics while playing. So they are in the middle of their Call of Duty session, maybe, and they discuss current politic things. And the study proved that these people are also open to have these topics while they are gaming in their platforms that they address to, because people are at Discord, people are at Twitch. This is where you can reach them. And so, for example, for political education, this is a very valuable knowledge, so you can know where address these people, you know?
Yeah. So we got...
So what was the question again?
The question was, what have you gotten out of this Congress day?
Yeah, okay.
What have you met?
I almost hit it, yeah.
Yeah, you did. You nailed it. And you said, I'm still young. I like that very much. You said gamers are young. Is this good? I like that.
Yeah.
So a few words have appeared on this at this stage of this panel, of this debate. So we talked about language. You used the word language. And money is quite the language, as people say, right? Zoran, I'm looking at your direction.
He's nodding already. Money.
Yeah, lots of money. No, money talks, of course, yes.
I guess money talks, and since gaming is, not the thing 20 years ago anymore, which is a really tech-heavy, a real male environmental, which was a really product-based cultural media. Things have changed, but money is still talking. So many people, you said it beforehand, not everyone thrived, right? So we kind of stayed tabled, as you said, but seeing a lot of indie gamers, seeing a huge wave of many people coming not from the games industry but from other cultural perspectives, trying to use the medium. So, is there enough money for everyone?
To go around, to make money in the industry? I mean, technically, yes, but you could ask some of the companies that just let go people and they're still making billions. So, I mean, ultimately, the industry, not just since yesterday, has basically grown up. So it's most of the bigger companies are about bottom lines, like any other company, specifically if they're publicly traded. So yes, of course, it's all about this. But you mentioned indies. There's a lot of idealism. And I do a lot of mentoring, especially with indies. And I tell people, especially when they're younger, they have different pressures in their lives. Maybe not a family, maybe they can offset some of the living costs that they have. Maybe they even live with their parents. So they have a chance to do something that they're passionate about without thinking about money, which is a very positive thing. And I always tell them, like, prepare for failure, which is not a bad thing, because statistically, you're more likely to fail with your first one because there's not an established brand or an IP, you don't have the experience. But if you're passionate about it and you learn something from the experience, and you maybe even be able to grow a community and turn this into something that is a future project, then it was worthwhile in any way. So it's not always, I believe, especially with in the beginning, it's not always just about money. I think we're still, this industry thrives on passion as much as it in the end wants to make money with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but I don't think that, making money is also, it is like has the reputation of being a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing, making money is just a necessary thing. For example, to have games made, especially by indies, they're trying to get money. And that's also what I tell my audiences. I often hear complaints of people, oh, this game is so expensive and I want to play it for free. And I always say, guys, if you want to play games in the future, game developers need to earn money because they want to pay their rent, they want to buy food. And earning money isn't a bad thing as such. So
No. I think, but this is a universal approach, right? It's a universal thing. You have the same in the music industry. You have the same in each and every cultural medium, right? And each and every societal perspective, right? So, but the main question that we want to discuss today is, what can we, as people working in this environment, in the games industry, from different perspectives, what can we do to create a maybe more stable environment? What can we do? What are the next things that we should work on to create stability, to create maybe more money or whatever?
Stability for the industry or stability for the community? For what we
I like stability for everything, I guess. For myself,
ultimately, as I mentioned before, the industry in itself is actually
it's quite stable.
Quite stable. I think we're just not seeing the growth numbers that everyone's used to. So I think that's what everyone mostly is complaining about if you talk about the industry.
Okay.
However, I think it's and I think it's an interesting part where you said everyone wants everything for free. But the industry is kind of leading people towards the free-to-play gaming, right? And since it's not really free, right? And then the other thing is things like Game Pass, which kind of create the illusion that it is free, even though you pay your monthly bill. And then people start complaining, and ultimately, I think if you really look at the development of prices, if you look, especially in the PC market, but overall, it's either stable or actually, if you consider inflation into it, it's actually a negative trend. I think never before has been gaming so affordable. However, I think, and that brings me to like, how do you actually are able to create positive communities, which ultimately create IPs and retention and money, as you all say. I think it's something where we have to think about engagement in a more long-term sense, not just clicks, likes, reactions, whatever.
How about well-being? Isn't that approach that we all try to foster?
Ultimately, a positive community will foster well-being, and so I think it's about. A lot of people take like we are community-driven, but what does that actually mean? I think, for instance, community managers or a whole team of community-driven people in a company don't have to be just an afterthought that we do, which is kind of like a little bit of support and talking to the community, but it's actually listening to the community, being the feedback line into companies that is thinking seriously and then really react upon it. And thereby you can actually drive positive sentiment and positive conversations rather than just getting toxicity from people that are just trying to be heard.
Yeah. Double that.
Celia, for example, you as a UX expert, do you think it's possible to create this positivity, for example, among a community of gamers with technical tools?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's possible. Everything's possible. We're going to need to iterate, and we need to constantly iterate because there's always some loopholes that people take. But you were mentioning of people, like if we want to be community-driven, we also need to protect the communities. And so the game industry is much more reactive than the social media industry, for example, because we know that it's actually hurting us as our retention numbers are not as good when a game is known as being toxic. So it's actually driving people away. So we are pretty active, and you have a lot of people working on this, a lot of GDC talks, Gamescom talks, and DevCom talks about this. You have a big group called Thriving in Games Group, formerly Fair Play Alliance, is really all about that, making sure we have thriving communities. So we do have tools, and there's no easy solution, but we do have solutions, but we need a will to really put a budget on it, and to have community managers and to also help them, because we need to protect the game developers, because community managers sometimes they being hurt as well, like they're being targeted. So we need to have a plan in place for them to support them. And so if we have that and we have a plan, we have the tools, and we iterate on the tools, and we do that with benevolence, we will get better at it. Now there's no silver bullet that can do it all, but there are ways.
Yeah. YLan, is ThrivePal maybe your personal silver bullet or plan to build something? Because now we're talking about communities, we're talking about communications in games, in the internet, and social media as well. But ThrivePal is, designed per concept to help individuals, right?
I love how you mentioned silver bullet, because kind of the main theory is that there's no silver bullet. So if you keep chasing the silver bullet, you'll fail. And when you look at the whole wellness industry, it thrives on selling silver bullets. Like this one trick that you had never heard of was what we sell is very boring. It's like, sleep, it's free, you don't do it, you should. No, walk, it's free, you don't do it, you should. These kind of things. You don't have to go to the gym, you can take your table and lift it, free weights, or your babies, and they grow. It's like progressive overload. So it's very
quite
boring
heavy, I
because
guess.
people have heard it before, but it works. There's tons of research showing it. So we're kind of saying, hey, there's no magic hack, sorry. So no silver bullet. It's a lot of little things that add up that are very boring, but that work. So that's what I'm trying to do.
As a child development, do not lift your babies. Just saying this.
On the table.
Yeah,
Lift your babies.
But throwing is okay.
But people lift their babies all the time, so it's not good. I just see people lifting babies.
Okay, but this is
So, I mean, carrying them.
Let's move on.
Sorry. So anyways, yeah, it's the kind of thing where I think it goes back to how we really love instant gratification, and we love being surprised, and we love this idea of a conspiracy. It's like people are hiding the way billionaires build their health. It's like optimizing the top thing, but it's like for most of what you can do for living well, it's very old, boring tricks. Because it's not tricks, it's things that you do that.
I mean,
so that's what I'm trying to do. No silver bullet.
yeah, no silver bullet, but maybe tackling or working on attention, right? So get
So
people's
what I'm
attention.
trying to do is to do a game that people, so a cozy game that people will want to play, so that they're coming to the game regularly, so that I get indeed their attention, so I can say, hey, by the way, did you walk today? And show some stuff that are hard to grasp theoretically, but that you can really learn intuitively just by doing them. So for example, if you think of something like an exponential, it's something that humans don't grasp if you explain to them, like, hey, it looks like nothing's happening, and then suddenly you have a wall. People say, okay, but then they don't act as if it's really happening. Like, you can see the pandemic. People, if you remember in like March 2020, we had news that in Italy, they have all these photos of the hospitals and everything, and we know it's coming. And we're like, dude, it's coming. And people are like, oh, no, don't worry. I looked at the number of deaths. It's like, it's so little. You're like, you don't understand what the exponential means. It's coming. We can predict. People are like, oh, no. And it's like, what happened? It's full now. Like, I was in New York at some point. I don't know if you guys know, New York has neighborhood in Queens named Corona, which is the hyper of the coronavirus, which I thought was strangely poetic.
Oh,
But
interesting.
Okay.
quite lots of deaths at that point in Corona, Queens. So people don't understand this, but because you just explain in math ways. So for people who love math like me, I'm a math person, you're like, great, I see the distribution, I understand. But for lots of people, it just looks like a weird alien foreign language that doesn't speak to them. Whereas when you do games, you learn by trial and error, and when you live it, you know. And so that's what games give, that just explaining stuff to people doesn't is this experience where even if you don't know why, you know that you need to walk right, for example. So that's what we're trying to do with the game. It's like using this other experiential language to convey these concepts about how you build habits, how things get harder, how if you do some things for a long time, it's going to, you're going to get payoff later, this kind of like long-term dynamics that are hard to explain because they're complicated systems with lots of pieces. But you can really grasp with all the rest of your brain that's like non-verbal. So, because if you think of your working memory, everyone has like 7 plus minus 2, this very famous psychology paper, which means we can't hold many pieces in our head. So the level of complexity of a system that we can understand is going to be like really not great compared to reality. Whereas in terms of learning through trial and error, we can actually learn really, really sophisticated behavior, but that we would not be able to explain, like walking. Try to explain how you walk to someone, or riding a bicycle, or all these kind of things, but we learn them. So trying to reach that type of learning through direct experiences.
I think that is what in the previous session by Carla Reyes, she also said that you can push your method through emotions in games, because games are immersive. You can follow a narrative. You can like identify with the characters. So if you just write down all the information, all the facts, and you hope somebody reads it, you probably fail. But games have like the potential to convey messages through emotions. Like you experience things, and once you have experience, I mean, we mentioned COVID. You know, remember Gamescom in COVID times were only digital, and really, guys, I missed the smell of the of the house. I missed the noise. I
Zoran
missed
didn't
everything.
miss the smell.
Yeah, and because we as humans, we are still like animals. We sense everything with everything that we have, you know. And you will never remember a game that you played in the, I don't know, Steam early access thing sometime in the year, but you will remember the game that you played at the indie booth, because you remember how it felt like when people were around.
But that's
you,
something that actually I would love to ask you about, because you have this, or anyone who has, because that's something that I personally am very worried about. It's like, for us humans, we need to move. Gamers often, they don't move much. There's a few games like Pokemon Go, Zombies, but a few where you're moving. And VR looked like it could be something, but probably gives people headache, whatnot, or it's very expensive. Not there yet. And so how, I feel like for gaming and well-being, you have to find games where people can play and move. And right now it's very...
Or at least interact with somebody. You know, as soon as you have like real people playing with you, it's already something different than being alone, because
but you have
share
to
an
move, and you have to
right?
touch people, and you have to like smell them, as you mentioned. So when are we getting multimodal, like real, not just sound and but everything?
I mean, ultimately, games are what people used to call the third place. I think PlayStation famously played on that word, or that place. But it's basically a social place where people can meet. And being the father of a 15-year-old, I can tell you, this is where they hang. They play, and Discord is running next to it, and this is where they experience friendship and community. And yes, I agree, for health reasons, they should move around, and I'm sending my son out, even if he doesn't want to. But you have to acknowledge, especially for young people that have been socialized during the COVID times, where it had to be okay to meet online. This is the third place. This is the social place.
I agree, but can't you have both? Can we not, as gamers,
there is
make up
both.
something that gives you both? It doesn't have to be that you're online, but you're also stuck in a chair that's uncomfortable, and it's something that's going to give you hip problems.
I think many people try to build hardware and games specifically for that purpose, but I think you can have both. So you can walk and be bodily active and play another 2 hours in this game, and then go back to physical work. I think this is happening already. I think back thinking about this, so like if we think back 20 years ago, the games industry as well as the whole society was quite different. That's prior to COVID as well, but prior to that as well, right? So technique, innovation changed the way how we communicate, how we consume, and how we socialize, right? So, and this is all on the table right now. So, and I find it really specifically interesting to have both of you guys here on the stage, you know, coming from the research and psychology background. So, sociology is another academic, you know, perspective which is really thriving in all this topics of gaming as well. So, how do we change as a society in terms of communication changes, right? So I'm looking into your direction because sometimes, you know, ethic again. So you founded and you're still working for an initiative to bring to kind of really clear up. All right, this is ethics, and this should be kind of a standard for everyone, as well as people who plays, as consumers, and as well as for developers and marketeers and, you know, big companies, right? Why are you doing that? Is that, you know, is that based on your research as a psychologist, or is it based on, you know, your background in the industry, or is it just a thing that humans should do?
I would say it's mostly based on the fact that I come from UX and human factor psychology, and we put humans first. So let's say you want to manufacture a car. You want to make sure that the car is going to be safe, even if the driver makes mistakes, because human make errors, and we know that. So we think about all that, and it's all about safety. It's all about thinking about how we can interact with each other and how we can make the world a better place with technology. This is what UX is about. So of course, ethics is in the pot. It's not just about making money. It's not just about making great games, but also making sure that the humans playing them are not going to be exploited, that everybody's going to be included, not just a subset of the users, so that we think about accessibility, we think about inclusivity. That is just part of what we do in human factors.
But you try to kind of build a new system of rules that hopefully
Guidelines.
more people will approach and
Yes.
kind of assemble it to their own rules, correct?
Yeah, so we try to build a set of guidelines, a code of ethics, that is evidence-based, because we also have a lot of moral panics circulating about games. The biggest one is around violence, that violent games are turning people violent, and we know that it's not the case through research. So we try to be evidence-based and see what are the real harms in what context for what population. And so based off of that, we can build guidelines. For example, with loot boxes, we know that they're particularly problematic, especially for kids, and any gambling-like mechanics. So we can say, well, we should probably not have gambling-like mechanics, especially in games that our kids are playing. By kids, I mean people under 18. So that's an example, but we try to be evidence-based, and these are guidelines that we are building together with industry leaders, but also with researchers, with policymakers, educators, journalists, lawyers, because there are lawsuits also happening. So we try to make it as best as possible for everyone. It's difficult. It's going to take time, but we're getting somewhere.
I guess. Zoran, you met quite a few people, and you sat on quite a few tables with people who might think exactly like that, but deciding, well, but we can make more money. If I don't want to, I don't want to put you in the money bank. I'm sorry, but you have the experience, man. It is like that. So
yeah,
but, I mean,
money. Yes, thank you for bringing it back to the money.
Yes, no problem.
And I'm trying.
You were nodding all the time, but
but it's true. So yeah, of course, monetization. We talked about dark patterns; they're absolutely real. The question is, what is ethical monetization? I think this is a question that we have to ask ourselves, at least in my opinion. And ethical monetization sounds great and should be the standard, but it isn't. And as we all know, companies usually don't tend to be ethical when it comes to making money. So I think, and I don't want to. It's just the truth. I mean, it's the bottom line, right? So if there's a shortcut, they will take it. And if this makes more money than that, they will always take the option that makes more money, which is just logical. in their logic, in their sense. However, I mean, this is where you have to call for intervention through politicians, through states, put up a rule book. I think regulation is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's something that I think some companies might even look for, to have boundaries, to see in which limitations can we work, and how is it for us safe to operate? Because ultimately, you have a question, yes.
Yes, please, feel free to ask questions.
Woody,
Yes.
there's a microphone on the
Yes, I got it. Thanks, host. Yes.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
I think
And you're
the professor
losing
gonna, yes.
It's okay,
Tech.
can you hear me? Thank you. So I'm a pro player, I'm since Commodore times and so I know everything, cracked games, normal games, Steam, and then my question is the following. Can we have something that people see, if they have, for example, the choice between several computer simulations, if these computer simulations are, for example, good for the development of the childs, of the Jews, or if they are, for example, having decent, let's say, IQ or other helping progress that computer simulations are stimulating the brain, for example, or other things like, let's say, ChatGPT is doing for new ideas. And it's not only about action, for example, but about adventure. And then can we have something like this? Because elsewhere it is there, that we see where we are, and if I have, let's say on Steam or so, something to sort, and let's say a child wants to play something, then I don't see only Peggy 18 or whatever, but I then see also, all right, this is good for IQ, this is good for reflexes, this is good for, let's say, for creativeness, because you have to build something on your own. And there's, for example, if I made the talk, where, for example, it's called a farming simulator from Swiss, and then in contrast, we have Doom, the Dark Ages, or Doom Eternal.
Quite similar.
It is, the one is only reflex and on monsters, and the other is you have really to get real world machinery, and you have to combine them in a way that you can say my child could play with it, because this is like playing with normal tractors. And this is something I would really like to have, a sorting thing from, let's say, undependent or independent community, maybe open source, that is then sorting them a bit, or that the developer themselves say, okay, that's good for childs, that's good for IQ, that's good for intermediate, and end. Because this, I think, is something that's not there, because I'm getting more and more computer simulations, and I can't play them all through before I want to know it. Look a bit like a Viking right now, because it's my computer simulation thing.
Thanks, dude.
So is this meant towards, I mean, it's towards basically helping, for instance, parents by like judging what they want to foster within their children?
Not only, but also, yeah.
And you know, that plays right into the playbook of you know, having to sharpen media competency in a lot of ways. Again, I think this is a helpful thing. Peggy has something similar for warnings on it, so I do not think that is necessarily a bad idea. Having it done by a community of people, though, is maybe not the right.
So there's, do you know Common Sense Media?
Common
Sense Media? Yeah, they're rating, giving information to parents to say these games is eliciting this and this and that. So there are some communities that do that. The problem is that you cannot really say this game is going to be good for this. Yeah, yes. On the stream, this is not going to work.
My idea would be something, let's say the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen or whatever, have a special department, and they say, okay, we rate them, because they also rate other things.
It's not possible to do
and
that. We cannot.
Yeah, but also not on force, but also on free idea. And it's not only on parents for the child, but also maybe on intermediates or people that are at study and then want, to, let's say, to challenge their brains or challenge their reflexes or their eyes or whatever. So it would be a very, let's say, spectral view, and then you can really say this is something for this and that, and then you can sort it.
Interesting.
One is extremely difficult to do, because we can say this game is eliciting this or that skills, but we cannot say that it's really making the brain better, whatever, because transfer of learning is actually very difficult, transfer from in real life. Well, let me just answer the question. Do you keep...
Yes.
Well, you need to get on the panel.
It's called IT software, and it means it is from Sigmund Freud. This is the S. It It's something over your own. And they make computer simulations that stimulate only the it. And it is something that stimulates horror or things that you have to defend. So this is something in a category. For example, it's not a simulator for farming. It's very stimulating your fear and you're training it. So this is one category. It's not, you can't categorize everything because it has a development goal.
This is super interesting. Maybe you guys should get together afterwards and have a discussion.
But I know this approach, and we had beforehand, we had one talk about metrics. So if we want to build something, and as purposefulness, the idea is that each and every consumer is not that baffled about the complexity, and maybe get more hints than an age verification, but maybe more. Then we need to talk about metrics. Then we need about fundamental researchal metrics that you could use for that, and you said no, it's not possible.
So it's extremely difficult to do that, especially given all the games that come out all the time, and games are updated also all the time. And on top of that, I would say as a child development psychologist, children have the right to just play and not have to get better IQ or whatever. They just also have the right to play, and we need to recognize that, because we have a tendency to say, well, they have to learn things, and oh, you playing this is dumb. And I totally agree about defining the harms and protecting children, but children have the right to just playing dumb.
I mean, this is, especially in this year, the Gamescom topic, theme, motto, whatever you want to call it, is perfect entertainment. This is this year's. And the thing is that, yes, of course, games can, do something good for your health or for political education. But in its core, gaming is just pure entertainment, and that's not a bad thing.
Yes.
When my kid is 10, and when he comes home from school, the first thing he does is either YouTube or games. And of course, he, after a day of school, after at least 8 hours of learning, he can just chill for an hour if he wants to, with pure entertainment. He doesn't have to watch the next educational TV show, because games are also entertainment, are relaxing. You chill, you release your mind, everything, and that's a good thing. And that's the great thing about games as a tool. For example, you can use the tool. If you have a hammer at home, you probably have a hammer, do you?
One.
Do you use it? Do you use it every day? No, but it's good to have it. So if you have a game, you play it mostly for entertainment. If you want to play a game to, I don't know, educate yourself, it's fine, But you don't have to. I don't think that games have to fulfill a purpose, and they exist,
Interesting. YLan, do you have an approach for that?
Yeah, so for me it's a bit different. The thing about metrics is a bit different. I don't think it's viable to rate everything, because also people often don't realize how tricky it is to get reliable metrics that are not faulty and not. As soon as you start measuring, you actually destroy them, because then people start optimizing for them and they cease to be good metric. This even has a good hard law. Well, as soon as you start measuring something, it stop being a good metric, because people are going to optimize for it, and so it decorrelates for your real objective, and it kind of cannibalizes all the other things you want to optimize. However, what I think is really important is if you have some games that claim to do something. I think it's great that you have games for pure entertainment, but then you have some games that claim that they're going to delay dementia. I see this one a lot. Or something like this. Then you need to measure that it's true that they do that, otherwise you cannot do the claim. So it's more, if you're going to claim something, or if you're going to have an intention where saying this game is going to make people more empathetic or something like this, you have to actually do the research, because we have lots of intuition. I would say, when people ask me what's the main goal of the formation as a scientist, like when you learn what you learn, I would say the research scientist, what you learn is that you have lots of intuition that have to be true, that are so obvious, and then they're wrong. So you learn humility, that you have lots of intuition that you're sure it's going to be true, and then you just faceplant. and again and again, and often you have this idea, and it's brilliant, and it's great, and it doesn't work, and then it's stupid.
And then you meet real players, and they just don't do what you want.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's actually having to confront yourself with reality. And so whenever you have a good idea that looks intuitive, even if you're full of good intentions, you have to actually show that it works for what you said it would do. Not because a good example I have that's very sad actually is lots of people have people in their family or friends who have a problem with alcoholism. And you know the approach that many of these people take is that they're going to shame their friends, saying, "Do you realize how bad it is for your children that you're drinking?" And there's been research on this. What do you think happens? When you shame someone, they feel bad, so they resort to their coping mechanism, which is drinking alcohol. So they drink more. And you're like, yes, but they should be ashamed. And you're like, yeah, but if you want to help them drink less, and what you do with your intuitions make them drink more, should you keep doing this? So it's this idea
put
of
people
like,
into a corner that never works. If you put people into a corner, and I think to your point that you cannot basically go into people's minds, turn some wheels, and then they change what they're doing. Ultimately, this is the case with games. This is the case with communities. It's a systemic worldview, right? You can only influence the world around people, not the people themselves. So basically, that means you can incentivize good behavior. I'll give you an example. For instance, in a game, a lot of like PvP games have a active but sometimes toxic community because they do not let new people in because they're not good enough. They don't have the experience. So how do you actually incentivize these people to, because they're not in themselves bad people, right? They just want to play with good players, not with these new guys. And so there's a way, for instance, in basically incentivizing by giving them perks, giving them, sometimes it's just a sign like you're the mentor now, right? Where they give people incentive to help new players, and then, but in that way, not everyone will do it, as I said, and they can go into people's minds, but you can incentivize good behavior by giving them, by manipulating the world around them and the systems in which they play.
yes, but there's not just incentives, there's also building culture and community.
Of course.
And that's something that often is much harder to do, but works in a much most.
But usually behavior doesn't change intrinsically within communities. You have to try, at least from my experience, obviously, but you can incentivize and you can show them the light, if you will.
Yeah, what I would say is that incentives are easier to put in place and they work right away. Whereas communities, there's a kind of like magic where I don't know if we have figured out. I mean, you mentioned there are tools, so but it's like I think it's trickier to. Like culture has to emerge in a way, and I don't know that we have rules that make it happen. And so when it happens, it's more like, whoa, there was a miracle. But it happens. But I think it's just harder to turn into a process. Whereas incentives is very easy. It's just
but incentives doesn't always have to be like a perk. I'll tell you, for instance, we talked about this earlier, right? Social media incentivizes negativity because it clicks better. So our social media gets more and more negative. How about we incentivize positive behavior, and that gets something, that gives you the reaction that you want, the attention that you want. I think that's something that we have to think about.
No, but that's where you bump into reality, which is that the reason why social media does this, they don't enjoy being negative. It's just because people, us, we react to this. We react way more when there's a big polarizing debate and. So lots of people try to push more positive things. They don't really get clicks. So it's more their response, like social media is just a mirror to what we decide to click on. It doesn't mean that's what we want. It means that what we want in the second we're browsing. And then we can.
Yeah, I know our monkey brains just love it, but.
Well, in human factor psychology, what we say is that we know how our humans are acting. We're not going to change the human, we're going to change the design so that the solution it gets better because we take into account how the humans are reacting.
But that's why I really like your point about regulation, because as long as you have competition between several companies and there are some patterns, dark patterns, whatever, and you don't level the playing field, whoever decides to put stuff like, oh, we're going to downplay negativity that gets clicked and like push stuff that's positive that doesn't get clicked, they're going to be eaten alive by another business that does not do that.
But to my earlier point,
so
we
which
live
is why I like regulation too, because
we do live in a shortcut mentality world where the fastest results is the best. And to put it that way, if you put regulations in, we incentivize companies to go the extra mile by incentivizing the right things and pushing the right tools and not do the shortcut.
Which is why I like regulation. I think we agree.
It's your patch in the first slide of your talk, you know, with the two ways, you know.
Yeah,
it's exactly that.
We have 5 minutes left in this talk, and I think we have lots of topics that we could and I personally, we should talk about it, but we still have just 5 minutes left, and I'd like to address the audience again if there are more questions. I know that you're standing up, and I will come back to your point. Yeah, let's do it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
But
So you do have a question?
No. It's very
almost
good. I
didn't
wanted
notice.
to agree to YLan, Boureau, because the idea that people have sensitiveness on some topics is there. And there is, I wanted just to tell how to win over this all. And there is today AI. And if you have, for example, a computer simulation where it's much about talks, then you can say to the AI, at first the computer player says, what do he preferences? For example, I'm also no drinker. I don't want to see alcohol jokes or so in the computer simulation. And then the AI will generate it a little bit new. And this is going. And I wanted to tell how to get this special list done for Steam or so. It is going. ChatGPT, for example, has the agent. You can search it, reverse. You can say, I want this and this for a computer simulation. Let the agent run 10 minutes of it, and you get a little bit a result. So it's a little hack, but it's going. And I want to say, with AI, you can achieve much with the user interface.
No, but
Yeah.
the models just
Thank
give
you.
you whatever they were trained on. So, for example, if you train a model on Reddit, just for background, I did AI research for like 15 years. Like before it was cool, starting from 2005, when it was still called machine learning. I trained neural networks myself before we had, stuff, gradients on paper. So anyways, they just reflect whatever you train them on. So we actually had several models. There was one trained only on Reddit. It was really funny because, so one of my papers, we tried to train a model to answer, if you correct it, or if you say something, it responds nicely. And so we had a model trained on Reddit, which was hilarious, because you would say something, and it would say something like, you don't have to call me a loser. And the model would respond, I'm not calling you a loser, I'm sharing my feelings, and my feelings are that you are a loser. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so bad. And so we were trying to show the different models, and it really depends on what you train them on. So there's no sense of, this is not truth, this is just a reflection of whatever you did during training. So, it's going to just give you back whatever you trained on, and as we don't have a way to have the distribution that corresponds to reality, it cannot give you reality. It can give you whatever you fed it. So, yeah.
Interesting approach, and I think this is a whole other topic.
Yeah,
We shouldn't
but
start with
I mean,
2 minutes left on the
completely apart,
time
but-
clock to start this whole topic. And I mean, yes, technical wise, and throughout each and every aspect of our lives, AI will do something. I guess we can say that quite fondly right now.
It's already
And
doing it.
yes, gaming as well will have impacts on it. And I'm curious about what products are going to be out in the next couple of years in terms of AI technologies, actually. So, but as you said, it just reflects for now what we, tell them to.
Not just
read.
that, it also reflects what you give it as objective.
Yeah.
So if you say, I want an AI that always agrees with me, it will do that. If you put in the objective that you want something that challenges you, it will do that. So there's this fundamental underlying disagreement between lots of humans in their values. You can't value everything equally, or you can, but it's always a choice between whether you value more fairness or loyalty,
Yeah.
or equity, for example. And actually, most of the cultures in the world, they value loyalty way more than fairness. It's like if it's your brother, it doesn't matter if he did something wrong, you're going to protect him because he's your brother. Whereas in some Western societies, like more, no, it needs to be fair. So even if it's your brother, you should give him over. So there's this sense of, as long as we have different values and different preferences, frankly, we're going to want the model to do different things. So there's going to be constellations of models that are tuned to different settings for how much you value rights versus freedoms, this kind of thing. There's this saying like, my rights stop where your freedoms are, something like that. I'm going to mess it up. But so this sense of humans have to know what they want to train the systems, and right now often they don't really think about that much, which is also why I like what you said about emotions, is often when you play video games, they give you a sense of what your values are, they reveal them. You feel very moved by something. Someone in a talk played a scene from The Witcher. A girl finds Ciri and she's dead, and then she's not dead. And you see, okay, what do I feel in that moment? You're like, oh, I didn't know I was going to be so moved by that. That teaches you something about yourself. And often people haven't thought about their values so much, so that can reveal a lot. But I think that's what actually what we're trying to do at ThrivePal too, is to try to get people to think about their own values, how they compare all these things that are good. And you can't say, well, I want everything, because limited resources, even just time, you have 24 hours, so you can't say, I want to be excellent cellist and violinist and pianist and hockey player and write video games and do programming and do research and run track field. It's like, no, 24 hours and have 10 kids. So it's these things like you have to make choices. That's the nature of life. And you have to make decisions of what your priorities are, be clear about them, and then you see what you want to do. So this question that AI just reflects what you say your priorities are. And often people don't really think about that much.
Well, they're looking for validation mostly, like they do on social media.
Attention, validation,
It's mostly validation.
resonance.
That's why people build their own information bubbles, because people usually don't like discomfort, and that's why they end up where they end up sometimes. I think, honestly, with games being, if we talk about how we want to reflect that in games, I think people should seek discomfort, and we should offer it.
Mm. I think so too.
Time's up, buddies.
Yeah, I know. I'm still thinking about it. So, deep talk. I'd like to address the audience again. If there's one last question, I don't think so. So, this is gonna be it for the Gamescom Congress, I guess. Thank you very much for your time. This was a blast. Thank you very much. Lots of insights. Lots of more questions that came up my mind. And apparently we didn't answer the big question, how gaming will change the future for a better...
Wait, just do this again.
Let's do it again.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
let's go for it. Maybe
Time
next
machine.
year, maybe next time. Thank you very much for your
Or
time.
next
YLan,
year.
Vio, Zoran, Celia. And thank you, dear audience, for your time and for your interest. This is it. Greetings to the internet. As you heard, go out for a walk.
Yeah, and let me just, before we
And make money.
just
And make
kill
money.
it off here. No, let me just say thank you to all speakers that not only on this stage, but on all 9 stages that we had here
Yes,
at the Gamescom Congress. Thank you to all speakers. Thank you to all attendees, of course, all the partners, sponsors, the team.
Yes.
Waving back to the guys in the back. Hi, thank you. And to everyone else who participated to this day. And to the stream, of course, thank you for watching. And
And thank you to you.
Thank you very much, Leah.
It's been a pleasure. And for all who are here now, there's now a little drink reception in the hall, so it's not yet over. So, thank you, and I hope I see you all next year.
Thanks.